Do you ever wonder about other gardeners and how they spend time in their garden? A gardener like me, what do I do on a daily basis to take care of a big space like this? Join me and I'll show you what I do pretty much every morning and my everyday gardening tasks. Hi, I'm Gardener Scott, and it's a little after 6 a.m. and my gardening day is started. I'm headed out to see what's going on in my garden. It's going to be a hot one today, so the first thing I do on these summer days is open up the greenhouse. My greenhouse heats up pretty quickly and holds on to that heat. So first thing in the morning, I open it up just so I can get some airflow so that it doesn't heat up quickly, and I can relax a little bit about the plants I have growing inside. Depending on how hot it's going to be determines how many of my windows and doors and vents I open. Because it's going to be very hot today, I'm opening everything up. Since I'm here at the greenhouse, I usually do a quick scan just to see how things are looking. I hate the idea that an animal would get into my greenhouse at night and tear things apart, so it's just nice to get a good morning look and see the tomatoes starting to set on the upper branches. And then I'll head back to the house, but I'll take the long way. I like to just take a look at my garden in the morning, see if maybe the deer visited over the course of the night, see if there's any damage. Mala loves running through the garden first thing in the morning, so I'll spend a little bit of time with her. Everything looks good. Looks to be a beautiful day. I'm not doing any work right now, at least I'm not planning on it. Just getting in the spirit, getting some ideas of what I'm going to do. I already put the water on to boil, so I'll be starting my tea soon. And my gardening day has started. I'll pick up the paper and do the same basic observation in the front yard. While I'm reading the paper, I'll have some water running in the front. We'll get these plants a good drink to start their day. I finished reading the paper. I've set up the water for another half hour. Now I'm going to go in once again, this time on my computer. Before I spend time just sitting in my chair, Mala and I like to play. She's got a lot of energy, and she will leave me alone while I sit on my computer if I give her some playtime. Bring it. Get it. I'll spend an hour, sometimes two, every morning on my computer, on YouTube mostly. I answer just about every question I can answer that comes to my videos. That takes a while, 30 to 60 minutes a morning, depending on how many questions I get. Some of those questions will stimulate some thoughts about what I need to look into, so I might do additional research. And then, of course, I go to YouTube and watch videos to see what's new. Like Ready, Set, Homestead. That's my son's new channel, and he just finished his turkey coop and now put up a new video feeding the chickens. So I'll see what's happening with him. I always like to check in with Eli and Kate at their channel, In the Garden with Eli and Kate, and their latest video with Eli trying to braid garlic was quite enjoyable. And then, of course, I'll check a lot of the channels that I follow. So the gardening channel with James Prugione has a new video as well. So I'll watch videos, I'll see what's happening with a lot of the other gardeners out there, and along the way I learn new things about gardening. And this is part of my normal day. It's now 7:45. I've had my breakfast, I've turned the water off in the front, and I'm ready to start doing some work in the garden. Now, I told you it was going to be hot today. It's already 80 degrees Fahrenheit at this time in the morning. That's one reason why I'm out so early. On the days when it's a little bit cooler, I wait a little bit until the sun comes up and warms things, but I don't like working when it's really hot. One of the things I have to do every day is water. Here in Colorado, it is so dry, and on days like this, so hot that I have to water every single day. I don't water my front yard every single day because the plants growing there don't need that much water. So that's once a week, maybe twice a week during the peak of summer activity. But for the green stalks, they need water every day. I like to hand water most of my garden, especially with these green stalks. It gives me a chance to inspect the plants. I can turn the towers so they get more even sun. And like with this basil, I'm noticing that it's beginning to set some flowers. So I'll chalk this up for an activity to do later, to come back and pinch off all these beginning flower buds. I do the same thing as I water the rest of my garden. Now, most of my vegetable garden is being watered every single day. The trees in my garden, I only do about once a week, and that's dependent on the weather, whether we've had rain or not. But these young columnar apple trees are new. I just put them in a couple of weeks ago. So I'm watering these every day to help get the roots established and give these small apple trees the best start. I water my greenhouse every single day because it gets so hot in here, the soil tends to dry out pretty quickly. So I try to keep it moist consistently, and that means watering it. Now, there's a choice of when you water. I like to water in the morning because the heat is coming, and I want to give these plants the best start to their day with a nice, moist soil. But there are other days when I have something going on in the morning, maybe an appointment, and I can't get to the plants until later. Early evening is my second choice, and I do a lot of watering in the early evening. I even hand water the sections with a lot of plants, like this raspberry patch. Now, I could do overhead watering like I do in the front. I could do soaker hoses, and I've done that before, but I like to get up personal and close to these plants. So I'll let the water run for a little bit and then actually get down and look. And I can see that on these yellow raspberries, the fruit will be ready to harvest here in just a couple days. If I just had this on a timer with a sprinkler going, I might miss some of the early harvests. I also see that there's some grasshoppers that are eating, and some of these leaves have a little bit of damage on their tips, probably from the severe sun we've been having in these hot days. It leads me to think that even though I'm only watering this patch twice or 3 times a week, I may need to up the water during these hot days. It's the observation, it's getting down to the plants that is really the main reason why I hand water. I've been harvesting gooseberries pretty regularly for the last few days, and as I'm watering these gooseberry plants, I realize I haven't harvested these in a few days, and there's a lot of gooseberries on these plants. So I definitely need to come out today and do some harvesting. I water every day, especially the vegetable garden, but I also weed every day. While I'm watering, if I see some weeds popping up, I'll go ahead and pull them right now so it's not a major job later on. And this helps keep the beds clean and the weeds under control. We put some beet seeds in this area, so I want to make sure that this soil is staying moist throughout the day. And the morning is also a good time to do some harvesting. So I have this Napa cabbage that I've been making into sauerkraut. I'll go ahead and harvest some of these heads of cabbage right now and take a break from my watering to take these into the house. I love this time of day to get down and see how the plants are really doing. Like these tomato plants. These are the ones that I put in the ground, the same ones that Eli and Kate are growing. And to make that video about the process, I actually put these tomato plants in the ground earlier than I would have liked to. The soil was still pretty cool. So it took a long time for them to take off. They're doing great now, but they did struggle. And so by observing how these plants are doing, I can compare them to other plants in the garden that I put in the ground differently. Like all of these tomato plants, I put these in the ground about a week and a half later than the other ones, after the soil had warmed up, after the conditions were more suitable for the tomato plants. And they're doing much better. I've already pruned back these tomatoes because they've been growing so strongly. As I look at them, because of all that growth, I recognize that that's another activity for today, to get in here and prune off some of these suckers that are growing in the wrong direction. But first, I'll get back to my watering. It's 9 a.m. The temperature's already up to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. It took me just over an hour to water my entire garden, and that includes giving the trees and the fruit bushes a good soaking. On most days, it's less than half that when I just do my vegetable garden and my seeds and some of the beds that tend to dry out faster. I noticed that I needed to take care of these gooseberries. So gooseberries have thorns. I'm going to go ahead and use a glove to pick up the branch while I harvest the gooseberries. And so there's this bush and that bush. I noticed that bush and one of the other bushes are ready for harvest. So that's the task at hand for now. As I mentioned, some of these tomato plants need some pruning, like this black cherry. So I'm going to come in, do some selective cuts to take off the lower branches that are starting to get a little crazy, some of the leaf branches that are close to the ground. And at the same time, since I'm here, I'll do some trellising. I'll go ahead and take some of my tomato clips and tie up these plants that are continuing to get taller. I'll take the main stalk of this tomato plant and attach it to this twine. And then I've got a side branch, one of these suckers that I'm going to let grow. I have another piece of twine off to the side here. I'll go ahead and use this for now to help direct the direction of growth, and I'll just continue doing that on all the rest of these plants. As I was watering these daisies, I noticed they can benefit from a little deadheading, cutting off some of these spent flowers. These flowers that are done for the season, I'll just come down and cut them off just above some of the leaves lower down on the stem. This helps clean up this patch, and for many flowers, deadheading actually promotes new blossoms to form. I also noticed my bird feeder was empty, so that was a piece of cake. Just adding seed to the bird feeder, just another one of those everyday kind of tasks. It's now 9:45 and the temperature is almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's going to get hotter. This is my cutoff. I don't like working when it gets this hot and above. So I'm headed indoors. I've got a lot done over the last 2 hours. I've watered my entire garden. I've done some pruning. I've done some trellising. I've fed the birds. I've done some deadheading. And I even harvested some gooseberries. But my gardening day is not over, because I'll be back later in the day when things start to cool down a bit. It's 1 o'clock and it's still very hot. Too hot to do any serious gardening. But these beds that I have seeds in, I need the soil to stay evenly moist. So especially on days like this, I need to come out and water these beds so the soil doesn't dry out completely. Now it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Some thunderstorms are starting to roll in. So with the clouds and with the increased wind, it's actually cooled back down to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. But it's dry enough that I need to come back out and give my seeds one more watering. And I'll do the other bed next. And at this time of the afternoon, my deck is in the shade. So this morning, I identified that I wanted to come back and cut off the tops of the basil. It's beginning to flower a little bit. So I can do that now in the shade, and especially with the breeze blowing, it's pretty comfortable right now. This is an activity that doesn't take long to do. It only needs to be done periodically, but it is worth waiting until it's not the blaring sun to get the job done. There's enough basil here for a nice salad, maybe a little bit of pesto when I'm completely finished. And this will be the end of my primary gardening tasks for the day. But there is still one more thing that I like to do later in the day. As the temperatures continue to cool and the day draws to a close, I'm harvesting some fresh mint and taking it inside. And I return with a garden fresh mojito. Such a nice way to end a long gardening day. It's 6 o'clock now. The thunder is starting to sound. The clouds are coming over. The temperature has dropped to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And I had a pretty successful day. This was a very typical day. About an hour of watering, about an hour of other gardening activities, and then some other fill-in over the course of the day. When I wasn't outside gardening, I was doing what most people do during the day. I took care of chores, I did some errands. I actually took the Napa cabbage and made some sauerkraut to go with a jar that I had from a few days ago. Made a batch of brownies, and now I'm enjoying sitting outside in the cool conditions. Mala and I love this time of day to just sit and enjoy the outdoor space, sit by my green stalks, and soon I'll have my sitting area complete under my gazebo, and that's where I'll enjoy a nice garden beverage. The main thing I'm seeking to do in my gardening day finishes with this. Because as you know, I'm Gardener Scott, and you have to enjoy gardening.